Hello, and welcome to a quick and dirty guide to interlibrary loan scanning. My name is Miriam, and this presentation is for the 21st Annual Northwest Interlibrary Loan Resource Sharing Conference presented in September 2022. Before I jump into the presentation's topic, who am I? I'm the Assistant Manager of Resource Sharing Services at Vanderbilt University Libraries. My OCLC symbol is TJC. I'm also the three-time chairperson of NWEL, this conference, and I have 13 years of interlibrary loan experience across three institutions. Those institutions include a small health sciences library, where I was a student employee, a small academic library, where I wore many hats, including interlibrary loan, but also circulation, cataloging, and serials. And now the assistant manager of resource sharing at a busy Tier 1 research library. I also was awarded the OCLC Rusa Stars Virginia Bowsher Distinguished ILL Librarian Award this June at the ALA Annual Conference for my work with this conference during the pandemic. Now, enough about me. Let's talk about scanning. But first, a short table of contents. First, I'll be giving a short introduction about why I'm talking about the scanning process. Then we'll look at what actually goes into scanning etiquette, and finally some tips and tricks, also known as answers to common questions. Now, why am I talking about ILL scanning? Don't most of us scan in our office? Well, yes, we do. But depending on when you were onboarded, there may have been more training or less training. Maybe you used one type of software one place, but they don't somewhere else. In all truth, we all scan sometimes, but we all use different machines, software, and procedures. Maybe your institution uses an overhead scanner. And you may be thinking, doesn't everyone? Well, no. Until I got to Vanderbilt, I had never seen one in person. Maybe you scan using a function on your photocopier? This is one of the functions I'm most familiar with and how the Vanderbilt offsite annex still scans for us. When we receive files from them, we have to clean up the edges and OCR the file before sending to patrons and lenders. Another option is a flatbed scanner. Many of us used these before the overhead scanner or still use them today. Then there's a microform reader, if you're lucky enough to have one. Many institutions are discontinuing the use of these machines when they are useful for viewing older materials only available on reels, microfiche, and even microcards. During the pandemic, the Vanderbilt Resource Sharing Department borrowed the microform reader from one of the libraries so we could digitize items for patrons. Since then, they have officially gifted it to our department since we get more use out of it than they do. After the hardware, we have software like Bscan and Adobe to assist with cleaning up the files we've produced. And cleaning up can include removing fingers, cropping edges, straightening pages, making scans accessible via optical character recognition, aka OCR, and various other forms. Mind you, this is just a short list of the machines and software available for use in interlibrary loan and resource sharing departments around the world. Which is why, even with all these different kinds of software and hardware, the ILL community can still hold to a standard. Have you ever noticed that every scan you get from around the world seems to have certain elements to it? Or maybe that some libraries are constantly emailing and asking for a rescan to include X, Y, or Z? This is a long way of saying that you need to remember that the scans you create are being used for research and education, and that when scanning, you should be thinking about the quality of the scanning and what information the user needs to create a complete citation. This leads us to scanning etiquette, which has 4 basic parts to it. Step 1 is to scan the pull slip or cover page. This page usually has the information that the patron or requesting library sent. It may also have notes from the person who pulled the item from the shelf. All of this is important for the patron to see. This is also a great page to place the copyright statement, as it doesn't directly interfere with the meat of the scan. Another way to fulfill the copyright requirement is to insert a page after the pull slip. Recommended language from the American Library Association appears on this slide and reads, "Notice, this material may be protected by copyright law, Title 17 U.S. Code. Note that copyright requirements will be different in other countries. This specific example is for the United States of America only." Step 2 is to scan the entire article. This may sound obvious. However, part of our job in the ILL or resource sharing department is to check citations. We are not breathing scanning machines. We are here to notice if the request isn't in the correct edition, on the wrong page, or isn't in the requested book at all. As thinking beings, it is our job, and the job of student employees, if you have them, to make sure that requesters receive an entire chapter or article. Or, if it's obvious they're only requesting a section, making sure the scan starts or ends at a logical location. Interlibrary loan and resource sharing is all about attention to detail and knowing when something isn't right. After scanning the main article, you move to step 3, which is checking to see if the article or chapter has any extras. What are extras? Extras could be notes, plates, or a separate bibliography. Now, when I say plates, I'm not talking about the things you eat off of. In older book, art and history books, it's not uncommon for publishers to print large, detailed images in a separate book or folder that correspond to a chapter. While scanning these types of items, I have learned to watch for pages that talk about plates. Sometimes they are also noted in the table of contents or at the beginning of the chapter, but not always. Again, this goes back to attention to detail is key. The final step in scanning etiquette is including the front matter. Now, some of us may be going, "Oh yeah, my teacher or librarian talked about this in the 3rd grade." Well, it's back. Front matter is in scanning includes the cover page with the publisher's name and city, maybe even a year, the copyright page, and the table of contents. The asterisks on this slide are reminders that sometimes the copyright page and table and contents can appear at the back of a book or journal. This is more common in scientific journals and foreign language books. Now, time for a few tips and tricks. A common question from student employees is, do journals have front matter? The answer is sort of. Many journals have covers, but the reason for a cover page is usually for publisher data. My recommendation is to find the table of contents where often the issue number, year, title, and publisher are listed. If possible, try to scan the ISSN too, but that isn't always easy to find. Also note that the first page of many articles has all the citation information you need, such as volume, issue, year, pages, and journal title. The only reason to find the front matter in these cases is to provide the patron with the table of contents to help them know what else is in the issue. Another question is, does it matter what order you scan everything in? Well, not really. Every institution has its own order. Some might prefer to put the front matter at the front of the scan and others at the end. And in the digital world, many of us don't have a digital pull slip for articles we get out of databases, but we get everything else on the list. Remember, many things you download from a database have your institutional data on the edge with a timestamp. Not all of them have a copyright statement, though. So this might open a department discussion up for how you want to do better moving forward. In summary, here are the parts of a scan on one slide. 1 is the pull slip with copyright notice. 2 is the request. 3 is checking for any extras related to the scan, such as notes, plates, or bibliography. And 4th is the front matter, which includes the title page, copyright page, and table of contents. And finally, when I'm done scanning an article, I always ask myself, if I received this scan, would I find this acceptable? This is a question that I've trained my students to ask themselves. And as someone with 2 advanced degrees, I have no patience for poor scans at this point in my life. I also know that faculty members that request hundreds of items a year also have high standards, and that what you give to them should be something to be proud of. On that note, I want to thank you for listening to my presentation on scanning etiquette. Please use the information provided to create a checklist to keep near your scanner while training. If you'd like to see what we use at Vanderbilt, please see the documents attached to this presentation if available.